Hello, welcome back to Nova Gaming. Today we've got something a little different. Today I'm just going to go over some of the spoilers that we had a couple days ago. We got spoiled and we're given two spoiler articles. Obviously two for two different product lines, but they're definitely something to look at as we look to the future of the game. The first thing we're going to look at is the new core set. Well, I guess the first core set legacies. As you see up on your screen, we got the little spoiler 5 card symbol thing that they have. We've got Dr. Aphra, Obi-Wan, and the Resistance Bomber. All three of them look very interesting, especially with the new symbol. Uh, which we'll definitely talk about a little bit later when we get to those cards. But definitely cool that they are adding different features to the game. And then the two cards in the back that you really can't see. One looks like a resilient, possibly resilient or resilience, and one maybe snare or ensnare. Both kind of look like villain cards, villain blue cards, because I mean obviously villain blue needs a lot more help. You know, joke. But anyway, let's get through this. Let's go through this and see what my initial thoughts are of these after a couple of days just looking at them. All right, so the first thing we have right here is Boba Fett. He will be in the new starter sets, the ones that will be replacing the Rey and Kylo starter set. When you look at him, the first thing you see is, 11 health, yellow. It's kind of similar to Jango, as in he's got a split damage set, though he only has 2 instead of Jango's only 3, but they are both at 2. He's got the disrupt resource, and he's also got a special, which is deal damage to a character equal to the number to the value showing on a die. So basically, you take either one of yours, one of your opponents, if they have a large die showing, and put it into one of the characters' faces. And then obviously one blank. It's cost 12, 16. A little iffy on that. I don't think he's going to see a ton of play. One thing I was hoping for was maybe a Jango Boba deck, which you can put them in there in a deck together, but it's just not going to run well with a 2 die and a 1 die. And then maybe one of the new plots, but as I'm looking at this, it's probably not going to get played too much. 11 health is better than Jango. It's still kind of on the lower end with all the damage decks that are in the main meta right now, but it is cool to actually have him, and it's going to be cool to get him easily, as he'll be in the starter set, and getting an elite version of him will be pretty easy. We don't know the whole set, so maybe there's something in the set or a partner in the set that will make him good. But from what I'm seeing right now, he's not the greatest character, but we'll see if there's a home for him. The biggest thing that I see is in the current damage focus meta currently, having damage split between melee and ranged usually isn't that great. So next we have is the Veteran Stormtrooper. 9 health for 9 points. It's decent. He's got 1 and 2 ranged, and he's also got the 3 indirect damage, which is the new damage type. Basically, when you resolve that, your opponent places 3 damage onto his or her characters, however he feels. Excuse me. And he also has 1 resource. And then he has the normal Stormtrooper 2 blank. This one I'm not seeing almost any play at all. For 9 points, I would much rather have the 2-player Phasma at the 1 die. Unless you're already have a Phasma in your deck, and then this guy is probably better than some of the other things you would pick. But right now, I think if you have a choice between the Veteran Stormtrooper and a Phasma, I would much rather have Phasma. So we'll see how much play this Stormtrooper gets, but I don't think it's going to be a lot. It's in a starter deck, so it's not going to be amazing usually, except, obviously Ray. But I think what we're seeing is that they're getting, starters at where they should be, as not great stuff in them, but they're good starters for somebody to have or somebody to get. Okay, and the next we have a new Han Solo, the Savvy Smuggler. So he's got, two damage sides, a 2 and a 2, well, the 2 and the 2 for 1, and he's got a discard, and then a 1, and then a +1. So he's kind of a little bit similar, other than he doesn't have 3, and he doesn't have the 2, 1 and the 1 resources. He's now got the +1. He's a little cheaper, and then his ability is after you activate this character, you may reroll a die, yours or an opponent's, which that's pretty decent. If you don't have anything sitting on maybe your other character, or he rolls really bad, you can just re-roll it and see what else you get. 'Cause, the more times you can roll, the more percentage you'll get something that you can actually use. Or you can just say, hey, re-roll that die because I don't like what it's showing. 10 health. He's still low, and he doesn't have the his previous ability, which let him live a little bit longer. So we'll see how he shakes out. I don't think he'll see play. I think the previous Han was a lot better. But again, this is a starter deck, and those are really not made for competitive characters. But we'll see. The next is another Luke. He's got the 1 and 2 range, and then a 1 melee, 1 shield, and 1 resource. And he's also got a new, new type of action, a power action. So you basically spend 2 resources to resolve one of his character's character or upgrade dice, increasing its value by 2. So basic power actions you can use once a round to basically do an ability. And this ability is interesting. It's spending 2 resources and then resolving one of the dice that's associated with this character, either the upgrades or characters, increases by 2. So if it's turn 1, you rolled out the 2 and you have 2 resources, you can spend the 2, resolve the 2 range for 4, or you can, if you rolled the resource, you can spend 2 and gain a net of 1 if you need to play something for 3. So there's a few different ways you can do that. You can attach something to him that has maybe mill, turn him into a slightly mill guy, milling maybe 2 out of the person's hand. Shields for a little bit more protection, or stick something else on him. But the power action is an interesting mechanic that they're adding in. I'm sure there's going to be some erratas for certain characters like FN who may be turned into a power action to help slow him down a little bit. This one, I can see it being played depending on what else is out there. Still splitting the damage between the 2, to me, I don't like. But he does have his power action, which can help with the damage, or basically help with a ton of different things. Basically slap on anything with a focus, and he can then, for base 2 resources, you can turn 3 of your dice to something. So I think he'll see a little bit of play, but I don't think he's going to be anywhere near tier 1. At 11 health, he's lower end, but he's a little bit average. So starter deck again, so it's easy to get him. So it's definitely, we'll see a lot of play with him. A lot of people at first starting to play with him, see how he turns out. Hopefully he gets a lot more play than previous Luke, but we'll definitely have to see. The next one is a new character, Dr. Aphra, the first one I think that I'm speaking about that's coming from the actual Legacies boosters. She's basically from the Vader comic books. So she has 2 for 1, which, as damage side goes, is not great. She also got the 2 indirect damage, which right now I feel isn't great, but we will definitely see how much support it gets in Legacies. Because if it's only a handful of supports and upgrades that get it, that get this, and but not too much support, I think we speak a little bit about some of it a little bit later. But right now, I don't think it's going to be great. Obviously, anytime you do 2 damage, even if it's split up, is good. Just because damage is good, and it's hard to heal characters in this game. But we'll have to see how well indirect damage goes. You also got 1 discard, 2 shield, and then 1 resource. And then its ability is the cost of the first droid you play each round is decreased by 1. Currently with the villains, not a ton of great droids for that ability to be even worth it. We'll see in this set. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of different droids that she can play with. We'll have to see definitely how well they work. And then after you deal indirect damage to yourself, you may draw a card. Now this is an interesting one, because dealing damage to yourself is not good. Drawing a card is good. But I believe damage is worse than being able to draw a card. Especially when you have 30 card decks, 25 card deck, turn 1. So drawing extra cards can be bad for you late game, especially if there's... I really don't see that being really good right now. It could be. We'll see. We'll see if there's some supports. I mean, we do have 1 support. I believe that's something to speak about before. That when you have to do indirect damage, you can place it on that support. So I think you could do that and then draw a card, so no damage to yourself, and then you just discard the card when it gets X amount of indirect damage. So there might be a deck revolved around something similar to that. But dealing it directly onto the characters, I don't think is good. Especially, I mean, if you're putting it on her at 10 health, then she's going to die extremely quickly. But her being a legendary with these abilities makes me think that there's more in the set that's going to play with those 2 abilities, that's going to make her worth, the legendary status as well as the 11 and 14. Well, 11 and 14 is pretty... it's decently low. You can fit a bunch of different things with her. But in the current meta we're sitting at, the damage meta we're sitting at, I don't think she's great. We'll definitely see. So the next one is one of the droids we're talking about, BT1. He's got an okay die. He costs 2. With Dr. Aphra he'll cost 1. Which, for that die, is actually not terrible. So with Dr. Aphra and then BT1, which would be a pretty good combination. And then after you activate this droid, deal 1 indirect damage to yourself, then deal 1 indirect damage to an opponent. So this droid basically plays with Dr. Aphra. Activates, deal 1 damage, hopefully to not a character, but maybe to a support, and then deal 1 to the opponent. So it deals 1 damage to the opponent, and the 1 hopefully not to a character on your side, but to maybe a support. It's got the 1, and then 3 for 1 melee, and it's got 1 and 2 indirect, and then a disrupt. So, I mean, this droid is actually not terrible. I think it's going to find a place. Definitely it's going to be almost an auto-include into a Dr. Aphra deck, but I could see it played in a bunch of yellow as well. So next, we have an event. It's for 3. It's deal 1 indirect damage to yourself to play a support or upgrade from your hand for free. Alright, so this one's an interesting one. So it deals 1 indirect damage to yourself, and then play a support or upgrade from your hand for free. It's a villain only for 3. So, I mean, you could play out an AT-ST. There may be some bigger upgrades and events coming out in this set that would be pretty good to do. Because I think dealing 1 damage for, say, a 6 resource is actually, you know, well, three resources plus a indirect damage. That's getting a little closer to not worth it, but I think I can see a lot of play around this, especially in a deck that deals a lot of resources on villain side, like an uncard deck or something similar to that. So yeah, definitely be interesting. It'll be in the boosters at uncommon, but yeah, we'll definitely see. I can see some sort of play around this, and it should be an interesting card. So next one is Obi-Wan. The new Obi-Wan, 12 health, so definitely good there. 1519, he's getting a little high, but he's still in kind of the range where he can, fit. He's got 3, and then the 3 for 1. So the 3 is great. The 3 for 1, a little worse, but still 3 damage for 1, not terrible. And then the 1-1 shield, which, you know, obviously Vibro Knife kind of makes that useless. And then 1 resource. And then its abilities, after you activate this character, you may give a character a shield. You know, awesome. Gives your character a shield, and look, your opponent plays a Vibro Knife. Well, awesome. I guess hopefully I'm playing Qui-Gon, or I have something in my hand that plays with my shields. I mean, he's got good health. He's got a decent sided die if you're playing against something that's not Vibro Knife, and then a great ability for Qui-Gon if his partner's Qui-Gon, or if you're playing a non-melee deck. But I think he's good. I feel he's a little high, but hopefully they do something with Vibro Knife so that it's not as powerful. Next is Obi-Wan's lightsaber. Now this one is actually extremely good. This one's, you know, Qui-Gon deck, Obi-Wan deck. 3, a little expensive, but for the sides that I'm looking at right now, I think it's worth it. So for 2 melee and then a 2 modified melee is definitely great. It's got 2 and 2 shields, which is very good versus non-melee decks. It's got a special. Its specials give attached character 1 shield and deal unblockable damage to a character equal to the number of shields on attached character. So if you have 3 to a character, or say you have 2 shields and you put 1 on, then you can deal 3 unblockable damage to a character. So that helps with Vibro Knife, because I mean it doesn't go versus the shield. So you basically, if you can reliably get onto the special, which for most blue heroes, they have a decent amount of focus, so landing on that or turning into that's not too difficult. So you can definitely start pinging whoever's carrying that Vibro Knife and start hurting them for carrying that Vibro Knife. But overall, I think this is a great card, and I think it warrants its legendary status. Next, we have Wedge Antilles, Squad Leader. So he's got a 2 indirect damage and a +3 indirect damage. He's also got a 1 disrupt, a 1 shield, and a 1 resource. He's also got a power action. Turn 1 of your vehicle dice to any side. So basically, once a turn, he can turn 1 of the vehicles or 1 of his vehicles to any side that he wants. He's at 1115. A little different, a little awkward on his dice or for his points. 11 health, so he's in the middle. We'll definitely have to see how the indirect damage gets, just because having a modified 3, a +3 of it, he'd basically have to be either elite or with somebody else that has an indirect damage, or with some vehicles that have indirect damage, which is what we'll speak about next. So the Resistance Bomber, for its die side, 3 seems really cheap, but its abilities is the ability that makes it a little less. Basically, after this die is resolved, place 1 damage on this support. Discard this support if it has 3 or more damage on it. So basically, you get 3 resolves out of this support before it basically gets discarded. So its dice, our die sides are pretty good for indirect damage. So it's got 3, 3, and then 6 for 2. And also 2 disrupt, and it's got 2 blanks. So if you have this out and you roll the 6 and then the +3 on wedge, you can do 9 indirect damage, which is a ton, especially if it's uh, a 2-person or 2-character build. And then of course it also costs 2 resources, which isn't too bad. The only downside is once it resolves 3 times, you have to discard it. So if you have ways to move damage around off supports, then this could be a very useful card. But we'll have to definitely see. So next one is something I was talking about. The Bubble Shield is neutral for 1. It's a support. You may distribute indirect damage to this support as if it were a character with 3 health. Discard the support if it has 3 or more damage on it. So this is something that may work with Dr. Aphra. So if you're dealing indirect damage to you, put it on here, but still get to draw the card. So this would be interesting. For 1, it basically holds 3 damage if you're playing indirect damage. If you're playing anything other than indirect damage, it's kind of a pointless upgrade. Alright, so next thing we're talking about is Plots, a new card. It's something you add to your team. So if you're at 29 points, you add Espionage for the 1 and put you up to 30. And then after setup, discard the top from each deck. So basically you start out with 1 card milled. But of course it hits you as well. I mean, it's cool to have one of, I guess. But other than that, even like this one, I don't see a use. I wouldn't like it just because I don't play any decks that want a card milled off the top of the deck. So, and then another one is Profitable Connections for 3. It's basically, you start the game with 1 additional resources like Han, or Lando. So basically you have a Lando for 3 points. It's okay. I don't know about uncommon just because it's 3 points, and I'd rather have a different character layout than have 3 points. So, I mean, we'll see how people use it. I think they're going to be different once we see a bunch of different ones, but these 2 that we see, I don't see them being played too much. Alright, so yeah, that's basically what we know about Legacy so far. I'm going to move on to Rivals, which is the draft set. This one is an interesting one. Open it up. So, I mean, this is an interesting one. We're starting with neutral characters. These also work in constructed as well as draft. So if you're a constructed player, you can put these into your deck as well. So basically, you put Anakin and a lighter dark side deck, Lobot and a lighter dark side deck, depending on how you want. I'm not sure about Fangfight. I'm sure these are all neutral cards, but we'll see. So let's start looking at a couple of these. Alright, so obviously the first one is Anakin, Conflicted Apprentice, 10 and 13, 10 health. He's got an okay die, 2 and then 2 for 1. I mean, it's okay. It's got the 1 shield, 1 resource, and a special. It's discard a hero card from your hand to give a character 2 shields, or discard a villain card from your hand to deal 2 damage to a character. So this is basically a play on. It can played on both, and it's basically light side is for shields and dark side is for damage, but damage to me is worth a lot more than shields. So he's mostly going to be playing in a villain deck, unless somehow shields become a little bit more powerful than they are right now with, Vibro Knife and a bunch of other stuff that just negate shields. Also, you cannot have Darth Vader on your team, obviously, but they definitely had to put that, because if they didn't, then, stick Darth Vader with Anakin, maybe a team. I don't think it would be a good team, but it could still be a team. So yeah, the next one we have is Lobot, another neutral. So he's got 1 gun, 1 focus, 1 shield, 1 resource, and a special. Its special is resolve 1 of your dice, increasing its value by 2. He's 10 for 13. He's he's okay. His ability is pretty decent. When you control the battlefield, this character has a Guardian keyword, has 9 health. So he's an okay character. Definitely will be used a lot more in the draft format than in, say, constructive or constructed. There may be a deck that uses him, but I think he's going to be mostly seen in the draft than in constructed. So the next character that they spoiled is Kitsu, the Black Sun operative. So it's got 2 ranged and 2 melee, again splitting the damage. So I don't really like that. It's also got 1 disrupt, 1 discard, and 1 resource. And before one of your characters is defeated, you may move a weapon from them to this character. So that definitely makes this character a lot better, because you start putting your weapons on your other character, so your opponent has to start focusing on them before they focus on Kitsu. Because if they don't focus on if they focus on Kitsu and you start upgrading your other character, if they don't kill Kitsu probably by turn 2, then the other character is going to start hitting them extremely hard. Kitsu's made basically for a deck that does a lot of damage. He's at 11-14, so he's at that kind of lower end. 9 health makes him a little squishy, but he's gonna probably find play somewhere. He has yellow, so it definitely opens up a lot, and it's neutral, so there's tons of different combinations for him. And next one is something that I know a lot of people liked, the Jawa. So he's a very, very cheap character and a very squishy character. So basically you put 5 of him in a deck and basically run all neutral items. I'm sure with legacies and with the rivals, there's going to be a lot of neutral, colorless things for Jawa to use. So he's got a 1 and then a 2 for 1. So it's okay. He's got a disrupt and a resource and 2 blanks. So he's interesting, to say the least. He's basically a cheap character. He's at 6. He's got, after you activate this character, you may discard one of your supports or upgrades that cost 2 or more from play to gain 1 resource. So he can kind of recycle stuff. If like one of the characters is about to die, he can, activate him, recycle something to gain something out of a character that's about to die. Or say you have a backup muscle that's completely used up. No, you can't even do that because the upgrade costs 2 or more. Yeah. Ugh. I'm sure there's some other upgrades I'm not thinking of right now that that you can discard. But yeah, he's gonna be an interesting one. Mostly draft. You'll see a few people probably bring 5 of them, unless they're terrible, and then you'll see less people bring 5 of them. But it's just an interesting cheap character. 1 will die basically every turn versus damage decks, but you got 5 of them, so we will definitely have to see what else things bring to see what we can do with those. And then they also did one event, the neutral event. For 0, spot a gray character, remove 1 of your dice to gain 1 resource. This is, I see this using as maybe an end of turn thing. You don't want to re-roll anything else. You just want to gain a resource and start on next turn. So maybe they claimed, and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to gain a resource and then move on to the next turn. For 0, it's decent. It'll be in some decks. Alright. So the next thing we're going to talk about is I guess draft style. Basically, I believe you just purchase the draft kit or the draft box once, and then you just continuously bring it back, or you purchased 3 of them, put 2 into your collection, and then just keep 1 together to bring. If stores start requiring you to purchase another one of these each time, then I think that the store is just out for money. And then you buy 6 packs, and then you crack 3 of them, and then you draft out of those three. Take one card, put it in front of you, and then pass to your, I think, left the first one, and then right the second 3 packs, and you basically circle around until you've drafted all the cards. So I've done a few drafts with Destiny with 9 boosters, and it's worked actually pretty well. It was you had to pick villain or hero during the draft at some point as you drafted, and you couldn't mix them. I think the neutral definitely adds a new aspect to it, to be able to, build a decent deck instead of maybe one person build a really, really good deck and then everybody else has really, really crappy decks. And the next one that they spoiled was sealed play as well, even though it's similar. You get one of the rivals draft packs and then 8 boosters, and you basically crack all of those open and you build a deck out of all of that. That's my favorite type. I come from Magic, so I loved sealed play, like pre-release and stuff like that. I don't enjoy drafts as much, but sealed play is great because you crack a bunch of boosters and you keep whatever you crack. You don't crack it open and you open up 2 really good cards and you can only pick one, and then whoever's next to you is going to get a really good card. But yeah, sealed is definitely going to be good. But yeah, I think with this, as long as they don't do anything dumb with it, don't break it or in some way, or force you to buy a new draft pack every time you play draft, I think it'll be okay. And as long as they continue to support it, I'm thinking maybe once a year they're going to release one of these similar to a starter deck and adjust it from there. Hopefully it works. Definitely have to test it when it comes out. And I know my store is definitely going to test it, and definitely going to give my thoughts on it as soon as it's fully spoiled. I'm sure somebody will create a tabletop simulator draft format or a app for tabletop, and then you'll be able to test it out there. So it's definitely really good. I think the new cards are interesting. I think Fantasy is definitely going in a good direction, adding a draft format to the game. It's definitely going to make me be able to purchase less product initially, because I know I'm going to be drafting or playing sealed play the first few weeks that it's out to help bolster my collection. So I'll probably pick up the 2 of each starter and then maybe 1 box, and then the rest are going to be like drafting and trading for everything else. So it's definitely interesting. As long as they don't release a broken card in one of these sets again, like Ray, then I think we'll be good. So yeah, overall, it's that's my thought process on these. You can take it with a grain of salt or anything like that, but definitely let me know what you think below. Like, subscribe, share, and just comment. Let me know what you think about the new sets. Is Fantasy Flight going the correct way on these? Do you think they're going to work? Yeah, definitely let me know. Alright, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll get something out in the next couple of days. Alright, bye.